Turn if you would to Jeremiah 4:4. Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 4. Now listen, this might be the last I do of this. I've been doing a few of these. That in my first one that I had ever done, I take that back. That ye are the salt of the earth. So it is metaphors or similitudes. A metaphor, a similitude such as we are, it is like or it is as this. And the preaching of the Bible does a lot of that. And it captivates the minds of people. And if you listen to public speakers, when I say public speaker, such as it could be a president, somebody, they use similitudes like that, and that does capture the mind of people. It keeps them interested. It does. It tends to do that. So we are likened to the salt of the earth, right? So I think the very first time, I take that back, the very first time that I ever preached, it was Luke 4 or Luke 5, that we are likened unto fishers of men. I have to keep going back, correcting myself. We are as fishers of men. So I remember the title. I preached this at Bible Believers Baptist. I preached it in the evening one time. It was volunteer time, and you would get a chance. It's a dumb title. The qualities. Our title tonight is just fire. That's a pretty dumb title. The qualities of a good fisherman. So anything that has to do with fishing, the tackle, the bait, where you're going, the patience, etc. I can watch a bob in a puddle of water from now to doomsday. I could. I'm almost embarrassed to show people where I fish. I fished one time in a muck hole, and my bobber was going like this. I never hooked it. What was it? It was a muck hole. It wasn't a frog.
Turtle?
I don't. That's a good guess. I don't think so. I think it was a crawdad. Probably a crawdad. All right. So we are as a fisherman. Another good one, and I probably should do this more often. I've only preached it 2 or 3 times, but this is a good one. Ye are the salt of the earth. Everything, housewives, anything you know about salt, we can. It's not like you have to create these things. You can come up with 10 points about salt, of what salt does. Ye are the next verse, the light of the world. Right. So everything that has something to do with light. Now that's a little tougher. That's a little more scientific. I know the next one I did is we are likened unto a tree planted by rivers of water. Psalm chapter 1, verse 3, I believe. I think I had 40 points for that. 40 points on trees. Now you can cut points out of that, but man, I just love trees. There's tons you can say about it. If you're like a tree, just look out in the forest. That's what we're like. And I preached that at Jim Pavlinsky's house underneath an apple tree once. I preached it here. I had a picture of a tree, and I preached it once here. And so I've been doing these likes or metaphors, and recently, what did I do? We are like what? Anybody remember? We preached last week, and I didn't remember when I preached. It must have been so profound, We are like, can't even remember. You got it? Oh yeah, peace like a river. So everything about a river. Peace like a river, not a raging river, a peaceful river, and all the things about a river, and so on. And I gave you a little engineering about laminar flow and vector analysis. Yeah, Dave, you have something to say?
Did you preach on being a watchman, like the guy told you?
No, I didn't. That would be a good one. No, I did not. All right, where do you find that? What book?
Ezekiel.
Is it Ezekiel? I think it's Ezekiel. Then that would be a good one. I saw that, and I said, well, I don't know if I can do that, if I can come up with enough on this. And you may say, well, he doesn't have enough on this one either. But we are going to do Jeremiah. Did I tell you to turn to Jeremiah? Are we warm enough? Are we too hot? Are we too cold? What are we tonight? You're perfect? All right, now I took my coat off because I'm not perfect, I If I had that coat on, I'd be really sweaty, so I'm going to keep my coat off. All right, we're going to do fire. Jeremiah 4:4. This may be the last we do of this for some time for a Sunday night. It says here, circumcise yourselves to the Lord and take away the foreskins of your heart, you men of Judah and inhabitants of Jerusalem, lest my fury come forth like fire, and burn that none can quench it because of the evil of your doings. Father, bless now the preaching tonight, that it would edify believers, and we would have an understanding of God's judgment now. In Christ's name, amen. Would it be a fair statement to say that fire has always fascinated men? Even today, who likes to have, does anybody here like to have a little bonfire? So it is fascinating. You know, it keeps the bugs away. That's not a point, you know, it keeps the bugs away, whatever, you can cook on it. Not that we're going there, but fire really does fascinate men. It always, like all things, it is discovered for the first time in a person's life. You know, any child is life is like an adventure, and we see new things that we've never seen before. One time there was this huge moth. I don't know what kind it was. It wasn't a sphinx moth, which is a tomato worm. If you have tomato, anybody here grow tomatoes? Ever get tomato worms about that long on them? If you put them in a jar, and then you feed all the suckers that you pull off there, and feed it to it, it is a moth. It'll turn into a cocoon. That sucker is wingspans like that. It's a sphinx, called a sphinx moth. I mean, I was a butterfly collector, I admit it. I used to mount them, and I entered the science fair, but I didn't go to the state fair. But I did enter the science fair. You want to know why I didn't know the Latin names? And I'm not going to learn any Latin names. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But boy, I was really interested in it. It's a sphinx moth. I was in the woods once, and we went hiking in the woods. There was this moth. It could have been a gypsy moth. I don't know. I touched it. I said, well, I just touched that moth. It squirted a spray out of there, I mean like a fire hose. I don't know if it was what would that have been? If it probably was its defense mechanism, probably, you know, probably figured a bird was attacking it. It never moved. It just squirted that thing. It was like a fire hose. It was like it turned the faucet on. It went psh, like this. You know, but you discover things for the first time in every person's life. Right? You know, this is a bed, this is your mother, this is your father, this is a kitchen, this is a chair. You discover these things it's the very first time it's ever been revealed to you. And then we learn these things by repetition, you get it memorized. But, you know, men have discovered fire, and usually in reading about fire, I did look it up in the encyclopedia. I didn't go in detail, but I looked it up because I was really looking for this thing about it's lumped in with wind, but I could not find that. Was not in the encyclopedia. Anyway, any encyclopedia salesmen out there are really starving, aren't they? You know, that is a dead trade. That died 50 years ago. Oh, Britannica, you know. So anyway, I looked it up, things about a fire, and our first point is it's really a controlled fire, or the fire, and it is something that is, it is a good thing. And let's go where we had begun this morning. I thought I'd include it from the sermon this morning, 1 Samuel 3:3. 1 Samuel 3:3. If you would go there. We're only going to go to a couple verses here, I believe. Instead of a one-pager, we got a three-pager here tonight. 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 3. And heir, and we said, what do we say the word heir means? E-R-E. What does that mean? It is in the dictionary, by the way. It is in Webster's. You can look it up. Before. It means before. 1 Samuel 3, verse 3. It means before. Before the lamp of God went out in the temple of the Lord. All right, so there was this continual fire that was to burn in there. Exodus 27, verse 20. Turn there if you would. Probably it's where it's part of the law and what it's given. And when we say this thing that is lit there, it is it's not olive oil, it's oil. The way they term it in the Bible, they don't say olive oil. They call it oil olive, or something like that. They say it backwards. I don't know why they do that. And it's beaten. I would assume that it means they take the olives and beat it to squish out the oil that is in it. And so you're burning, it's an oil lamp. So this oil probably either goes on a wick or it comes down a tube. And probably you're not burning the wick, because if there is a residue, it is the ashes of the wick that makes this black, would make this black soot. So without that, if you're burning the pure olive oil, it probably burns completely clean. There probably is no residue. I would assume it does. You know, let's assume it does. It's high quality candles, you know. Thou shalt, what did I say? Exodus 27, verse 20. Thou shalt command the children of Israel that they bring thee pure oil olive. Notice it's oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamp to burn always. So you got this high quality oil. Another high quality oil would have been whale blubber. You know, they went out and hunted these whales for burning lamps in people's homes. Matthew 5, just for the fun of it, go there. We already know, and I've already kind of quoted that. Verses 14 through 16. Ye are the light of the world. City that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle, put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and give the light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Now these are controlled fires. The fire. Fire produces two things. You know, if there was a scientist here, they could debate this and say, well, no, it doesn't. But just for the sake of preaching, in general, that you and I know, it produces heat and light. Fire, what actually produces fire, it is when oxygen, and I had asked ahead of time before church started, before Joe had gotten here, because I wanted to find out this list. And most everybody was saying the same thing Brother Welsh has said, it's oxidation. That's what it is. It's rapid oxidation. So it produces heat and light. And fire's caused when oxygen unites with another substance. If it's rapid enough, if it happens really quick, it gives off heat and light. All right, that's what fire is. If it's real rapid. So rust is oxidation, but it produces no heat. It produces no light. All right. Now, if you have an oak log, let's just take an oak log. Let's say it's not that big diameter, it's that long. And let's say it's well seasoned. There's no moisture in it. It's been put in a kiln and it's been dried out. And you have an oak twig that's dry. Which one's going to burn faster? Same tree, same oak, no different. Which is, and you were to take a match, which one's going to light? You know, from experience, you and I already know it's the twig. The log is not going to light. I mean, you can have that thing under there till doomsday. It's not going to light. You've got to have a real roaring fire to get that going. So why is it that the twig burns? We light the match to it and it lights where the log doesn't. It's because there's more oxygen that's available to burn the twig than there is the log. There's more oxygen around it. That's why the twig will burn. When you have the log, it smothers. It's like paper. When you light paper, you crumple it up, but you make it sort of loose and you light it, it burns quickly. If you ever see in the catalogs where you make an oak log, you can spin newspaper so you can make an oak log, and that was the ethnic way of making cheap firewood. And you throw that in the fireplace, what happens to that paper log?
Burns slow.
It not only burns slow, it won't burn at all. It burns slow, it won't burn because oxygen can't get in there to burn the paper. Even though paper is very combustible, but if the paper was separated where the oxygen could get to it, oxygen can get to it quickly, it'll burn. All right, we see that. I think we know that. As compared to log, It's easier to start a fire with shavings than with a log. So it's a controlled fire. Now, in looking this up, I'm going to use, so it begins with the fire. Our second point is the flash. In the encyclopedia, I still look things up in the encyclopedia. Rarely they do. It is called the kindling temperature. Anybody know what that is? The temperature that it ignites. Now I liken this to my pastor. You know what he said about me? Tucker, you have what kind of a fuse? A short fuse, man. That match just barely gets there, and kaboom. It's kaboom, right? So it had a kindling temperature that is low. It's very low. So, but my father, I'm going to go by what my father told me. And I always remember this as a boy. And you got to remember, my father's 1906. So you think, I think like him because I was around him all the time. This is the way he talked. He'd say, he would call it the flash point. Anybody ever hear that?
Flash point?
The flash point. He did not, now I read through this encyclopedia. It's an old, 1950s. They did not mention flash point. They called it kindling point. That's what they called it. They did not call it the flash point. But we have all F words here tonight for this outline, so the flash point just fits right into it. The flash point of when this ignites. For paper ignites at 363 degrees. That's when it ignites. Cotton is, it's just on the list, you can pull up the list. Cotton is 442 degrees, that's when it ignites. Wood ignites at about, depending on the wood, 500 degrees. Alcohol is 600 degrees. Natural gas, what you're going to burn in your stove, is 1200, or in your furnace, 1200 degrees Fahrenheit. That's when it starts. Phosphorus ignites at what temperature? It'll start to burn. Anybody know? Phosphorus. At normal temperature. If it's right here, if you have phosphorus in your hand right here, ever do that in the lab? We had that in the lab. You take a piece of phosphorus, I believe it's phosphorus, you have a little bit of that, like something like magnesium. You have that, and it burns bright white, and it burns right up when it's exposed to the air. All right, and certain ones cannot be, and it's stored underwater. And the other one is sodium. It will even burn when it's underwater. Sodium has to be stored. Anybody know how sodium is stored? You're like a scientist. This guy I went to school with, he's like a scientist.
Oil or carbon?
It's stored in kerosene. Stored in kerosene. Now you wouldn't think that you would store something that could burn in kerosene now, right? But you store it in kerosene. Anybody remember the fire in Garfield here about 10 years ago? You remember that?
Magnesium.
Was it? I think it was magnesium.
Yeah,
What had happened, this stuff was stored in barrels. And you could see that fire from our house. It was over here off of Broadway. It was sort of meandering through there, over where Miles, 93rd, and all that kind of hits, but it's a little closer here. And that glow was for miles. It rained, and somehow water got in there, and it ignited it.
I was right there when it happened.
And it went up, it all burned up. It was quite a fire. And I think the more water you dump on it, the worse it gets. I mean, the fire department comes, you just can't go spraying water on that thing. So the flash point. Different things have different flash points. And we're talking about the anger of God here. This just sounds more like a science project type sermon than it is a sermon. Jeremiah, go back if you would to Jeremiah, that's what we're supposed to be in. And I do not have any illustrations tonight, folks. But we do have a half a dozen points. So we have the fire, we have the flash point. And so here, circumcise yourself to the Lord, take away the foreskins of your heart, you men of Judah, inhabitants of Jerusalem, lest my fury come forth like a fire. So we have the flashpoint, when something is set off, or when it reaches this point of this sin, so that you have what is, different fuels have different flashpoints. So you have, our next point is the fuel. It says the evils of your doing. The evils of your doing. So it is the fuel that it takes to set this off. This is not a controlled fire. This is an out of control fire. There is the fuel, the evil of your doings. If I was to name off some evil of your doings, why don't we have class participation tonight? Name off some evils of your doings. You know, when they brought that casino into town, I said, you know, in the end, this is not going to be good. How can that be good? It robs you of your money. Now, my parents did take us to Las Vegas. I had uncles that would take their kids to Vegas to stay in Vegas to see what goes on in Vegas because they wanted to do what they did in Vegas. Anybody know why we went to Vegas?
See Lake Mead.
To see Lake Mead?
Yeah.
You know, isn't there the dam up there?
Yeah, Hoover Dam.
The Hoover Dam.
And
now,
Mead is formed by Hoover Dam.
Oh, and Mead is formed by, we did not go there, that I can recall. My father wanted us children to find out what a one-armed bandit was. What was a one-armed bandit? You know, he'd always talk about a one-armed bandit. Where were one-armed bandits big? Anybody know? And now we're talking about, you got to think back. It's before you were born. Where were one-armed bandits? Not in Chicago. No. What forms Las Vegas? Anybody know? It's the tri-county here. Cleveland, Akron, and if it's not Canton, it's Youngstown. That's where all the mobsters are from. They got cleaned and rooted out of here, probably when Elliot Ness came in here. You know, Elliot Ness, you think, well, oh, the famous Elliot Ness. Folks, they brought him in here because they were mowing them off at the kneecaps. Yeah. They were mowing people off at the kneecaps, and if you were on the bad list, you had 70 ice pick holes in your head, and you were thrown in the canal. Yeah, so-and-so was found last night, and there's 70 little puncture wounds in his noggin from ice picks. My father would tell me these stories. They bring in Elliot Ness to root this out. You know, where did they bring Elliot Ness in from? But he came into Cleveland to clean this mess up. Because Cleveland is the hub, folks. It's the hub for a lot of things. They run him out of here. They closed up shop here, and all those people moved to Vegas. That's what forms Las Vegas.
You started out in the Treasury.
So you would have Jog Lake, and the sad part, all the men are at work, and then where are all the women? They're at Jog Lake, and they're down at East 9th East Street on the waterfront here at Cleveland, and they're hooked in the 1920s, 1930s, and they're all pulling these handles because gambling is legal here. All right, this is an era, folks, that is before you're even your grandparents, right? Or at the end of your grandparents. So when that came into town, how can that end up being a happy ending? It cannot be a happy ending. All right, so we could just name off the fuel, gambling, and it has carried a lot of good people down to hell. And everything else that it brings up, because of children, we won't mention unmentionables. All right? Booze that's connected with that. You know, down the hatch with that stuff. Right? There's a special place in hell for the board of directors for Seagram's 7. That has never brought any happiness to any household. We had a bar in the house. The bar was 1940s, 1950. The color of it was blonde. Whenever it was ever opened, it was usually only opened once a year. There was an odor that permeated out of there. I knew the bar was open. You could smell it. There's a certain smell to that. I don't know if it's alcohol. I don't know what it is. My father would have once a year, one time a year, he'd have a scotch and a soda. I'm not justifying it, but that's what he would do. But he wouldn't do it in front of us kids. He said, well, I have a scotch and a soda once a year. We would get gifts at Tucker Steel Stamp. This is back in the day. A lot of that gift giving is over, folks. Giving out the turkeys, giving out extra week's pay, all that Christmas gift giving. A lot of that is done away with. The culture, our culture in America has changed. We would get the hooch. You know, I'd get the hooch and, oh, thank you. Yeah, I really didn't want the hooch, but I got the hooch. We would get the wine, we would get the whiskey. I would stack it up, and there it would be. Hey, listen, when I played out at the ground round, they would line up the drinks for me. I never had one, but they would line them up. I said, why won't they line up money or something? They'd line up the drinks, but they lined up that hooch. Folks, when I got saved, what happened to the hooch? I didn't say, well, you know, what can I do with it? I'll give it to you, or I'll give it to you. I gave it to the septic tank. It went right down the drain. Never touched my lips, but that stuff went down the drain. The evil of your doings, you know, gambling, unmentionables, all right, booze. You know, that's what is the exterior, folks. But the evil of your doings, what's going on in between your ears, that's where the rubber meets the road. You know, if we actually do read the verse, circumcise, what? The foreskins of what? Of your heart, folks. Of your heart. Because the evil didn't start with the throwing of the dice, or spinning some wheel, or is it a roulette? There was a guy came in, you know, I own the building, and we're trying to rent it. It was a black guy, big as a mountain, big as a mountain. I mean, I am dumb. I'm really dumb. Well, I'd like to rent this place. And I said, and I was in there, and Greg, he's coming. I said, well, what kind of a business do you do? He said, well, we rent out. And I was pretty dumb, and we're not talking too long ago, 10 years ago. He said, I think he said gaming tables. I never heard of that before. I never heard of gaming tables.
It's like an overnight poker. It sets up for one night, they play, and then just...
Well, they rent these gaming tables.
Well,
I'm a preacher.
Vegas night at St. Whatever's.
Well, I had no idea. Pardon, say that again?
It's for Vegas night at St. Whatever's Church.
Well, I had no idea what he was talking about. And I thought, well, you know, I want a tenant. You know, he's willing to pay the price. I want a tenant. Well, then we talk, and all of a sudden, wait a minute. You mean you're gambling? You basically, hey, dummy, don't you know what gaming table? We're gambling here. And I said, well, you know, I really can't do that. You're going to have to find another place to rent. Don't do it. We went to this antique store, and I bought this cage. And I thought, I never saw anything like it. This cage, you turn it, and there's dice in there. And I said, man, I've got to have that. I know where the store is. It's right on 39, near Sugar Creek. And so, and the girl said, well, those dice are ivory. It's probably worth something. So we bought it, and then I realized after, well, it's for gambling. I didn't know that. I didn't know, so we saw some old movies, and there they were. You know, the G-men are coming in to bust up the joint. They had these giant ones that they were spinning. That's sitting in my living room. You know? Well, the kids use it to play Monopoly or something if they ever use it. The flashpoint, the fuel. Folks, it's not only what you do openly, it's what takes place in the heart. It's what takes place in the heart. Right? It's already perceived and conceived here in the heart, and then it's put forth. And then how as far as the flash point, when does God say enough is enough? Enough is enough. Right? Our God is very, very pardoning, very, very patient. And it says, lest my fury, that's our fourth one, the fury, lest my fury. It becomes, ever start, you know what? Bus and Amy had it was that cookout you had over there at that house on, what's the name of that house? It was here.
McKinley?
Over on McKinley. They were done with it. They emptied out the ash pit. And they threw it in the garbage can. This was in the yard. They emptied it out and they threw it in the garbage can and they put the garbage, did you put the garbage can where? In the garage? Well, lo and behold, it was hours later. Was it that night or the morning?
That night.
That night. How did you know? Was the whole place on fire?
Because our neighbor pounded on our door and said your garage is on fire.
They pounded on your door and said the garage is on fire. You never put those ashes in a... Just let it burn out. Just let it burn out. What's the easiest way to kill a fire?
Or
No?
Dirt.
Yeah, you've got it, sister. Dirt. That's not our sermon. But if you have it out of control... I'm just giving you a safety point from the fire marshal here. I always have a bucket of water there, but you want a shovel that you can shovel dirt with. You're right, sister. It is not water. You throw water, it'll dampen it a little bit. But you want to throw fire on it. You want to throw dirt on it, that shuts the oxygen off. You want to throw dirt on it. So the fuel finally erupts and this fire begins, and now the fury of it now becomes an out of control fire. Now I personally, I'm trying to think if I have ever experienced that. We've had 2 lights explode over here, fluorescent lights where the ballast blew, and they caught on fire. But it didn't, I was there, and I never leave those old lights on overnight because they could heat up and burn. One literally blew up, exploded. There were flames coming out. Anybody here ever experienced? Was it out of control?
just about.
You're kidding. Were your cars in there?
No, the neighbor grabbed our hose and put it out.
Grabbed your hose. They did get it out. Okay, and it spreads fast, folks. It's not waiting for you. It's not saying, hey, I'm out of control over here. It's out of control. It's out of control now. Go ahead.
I did the same thing.
You did the same thing.
Set our fence on fire, and he was in the driveway with the pressure washer, and a guy had gotten out of his car and said, hey, your fence is on fire. Because he can't hear nothing, and his head was down.
I guess we're all dumb at something. I'm dumb at gaming tables, and we could be dumb with fire,
I told her to put it out.
Oh, the fire that went put it out.
Disconnect the hose from the pressure washer, because you have to let go of the pressure to disconnect it, to get the hose.
In
It was crazy.
our house, all the doors had bolts. I mean, there was bolt on the French doors bolted. There were locks all the way down. Do you know it was to keep the boogeyman out?
Yeah.
I didn't put the locks on. The French doors open this way into the house. If you're the boogeyman and you go up to that door, all you have to do is kick the door and all the locks open up. It wouldn't keep the boogeyman out, but it would do what with little children? It would keep the kids in. So the first thing I did in that house, I took off this was the VP of a big company. Just because they're the president of a big company in town here, a multi-billion-dollar company, doesn't mean they're too smart. They had all these locks in there. I took every lock off of there. Not to keep the boogeyman out, but so that my children could get out of the house. Amen? If there was a fire, what do they put in a wall? They know what they put in a wall? They put in a wall, and you have your studs this way. They put, no, not the lath to hold the plaster. We're talking about a whole house. They put what's called a fire stop. You know what I'm talking about? They put in there, if you don't have it, it's probably because you're not in danger of that. They put in fire stops. Where is my staircase? On the outside of the house wall or on the inside of the house? In the inside. Stairway goes up, it goes up, it goes up, all the way out. That's just like a chimney. If my house goes, it is the towering inferno. It will blow like a chimney. Oh, by the way, I did catch my chimney on fire. And you know they say when your chimney catches on fire, it sounds like a freight train? It sounded like a freight train. It was on fire, it was out of control. It was a chimney fire, and I said, I think I just set the chimney on fire. And because we ran out of wood, and so I wanted to restart the fire, because we had a wood box, I put the pine in there. It started all the creosote, and it was going on. You could just hear it. I went outside, the flames were coming out of that thing like 10 feet out of the roof, you know. And I said, oh no, could it burn itself out? It could, but it was wintertime, it was catching the vines on fire, and I said, oh, well, the edge of it's stone, but the edge of the eaves are real close. I'm going to have to do it. 9. I don't want to. 1. And I heard the sirens coming to my house. But they came and they put it out. You know, it was a happy ending. It made me get rid of that. Stop doing it.
I wasn't so happy because they put the black stuff down the chimney, but they forgot to get you out of the house.
I know. That's another story. They put that down, and the first thing out of that guy's mouth, then he said, don't worry, it's safe. Like I thought I was going to die. It went through it goes right up the steps. That white powder went through the entire house, every floor, and on everything. So we had a cleanup session for a month or two to clean that mess up. But when a fire is out of control, folks, what do you want to do with yourself and with your children? Get them out of that house. Get them out of that house right now. Don't go back in there for the goldfish. Get out of that house. Get out of there. It is out of control.
What about the banjo?
I'm not even for that. Get out of the house. The fury, lest my fury becomes an out of control fire. Oh, and the worst thing, I do not permit any of my children to man any fire. I don't permit that. I just don't. And if my adult children are doing that with my grandchildren, if they want to nag, I'm nagging them. Because the last thing you want to do is a child catching on fire. Hair burns like kindling. Clothes will burn like kindling. And to say they're going to drop and roll, well, have at it. Because the last thing on their mind is dropping and rolling. They're going to run and burn up. I had a friend get third-degree burns at the pattern shop around the corner here. The fire started, because you have to do something with patterns with fire and all, and it started, it was awful. And the next, in our 5th one, the flame of it, the heat and the light. The flame of this. You will either be a vessel unto what 2 things? Either unto honor, yes sir, or dishonor. The flame of this, it produces heat. You go up there and feel the heat. Behind our house we have a bank barn. It used to be a dairy barn. That dairy barn burned up in the 30s. Our neighbor, who's a mile away, said you could see that barn burning for 10 miles. It was the biggest event in 1932 or 35 when that barn went. It produces heat and it produces light. So when God's fury, if you want to sin, you want to continue in this sin, and then the kindling, it hits the kindling point, and God sets it on fire, you are going to be seen by one and all. Everybody is going to see the folly that you or me have done. That God is going to get what He demands, that pound of flesh out of you, and everybody is going to see it. They went down in a ball of flames, And everybody's going to see, you will be a vessel unto honor, but in this case, you will be a vessel unto dishonor. And everybody will see it. Will see it, and everyone will know. All will see you either presenting Jesus or being consumed by Jesus. Either presenting Jesus as a vessel of honor or being consumed by Jesus. Amen. Our sixth one. There is the finish. Fire does eventually burn itself out when there's no more fuel which can be consumed. When all the fuel is gone, either the fire department came in and doused water on it, chemicals on it. Generally, they put water. Listen, the fire hydrant is a, we have a fire hydrant in the yard. The boy said, are you going to hook that up? We got it from back here. Somebody hit the fire hydrant and ended up back here to the house. What do you get out of that fire hydrant? You get water. What do they do with water? Other than spray kids on a hot day. Where does the water go? There's a fire in a house. There is a water hydrant here. Where does that water go? Does anybody know where the water goes? You don't know where it goes? Does it go on the fire? No, it does not go on the fire, and that water does not go on your roof. That water goes from there into the pumper. That water, yeah, see, you didn't know that, did you? That water goes into the pumper. If you live east of here, if you're a West Sider and you go out to Columbia Station, are there water hydrants there? There could be in a place, there are no water hydrants. But that farmer down there has got a pond and it's right next to the road. Anytime you see a hose or something that comes out of there, it's so that that fire truck can come up there and suck water out of that lake and put it in the pumper. It's the pumper that gets it up there. That water comes out of there, there's very low pressure. It's the pressure that's in your house. That's not going to do you any good. It's got to get into that pumper. And then they fire up that diesel truck and that's what shoots that water up there. But eventually, the finish of this fire, it's when the fire is done consuming all of this sin. The time it takes to burn, we could say as the time it takes to burn off the dross, to purify the believer and get all of this sin out of their life, and get this fire, that all the fuel has to be burned off. And when it's all what we are considering to be sin, has to finally be burned off of a person's life. All right, and last of all, I guess we only had 7 points, and there is the fruit of this, or the flesh. All right, Ephesians 5:26, by the water of the Word, right? So one way to stop this fire is getting back into the Bible. It needs to be fatal to the flesh. You know, if you're burnt enough, you know, what happens when you're burned? You know, I went to go see a burn victim. It was, anybody remember Bernie? Remember Bernie and Eileen? You do remember Bernie. Bernie's family was hooked up with Jehovah's Witnesses, and in Lorraine, it was on Channel 8 News, this relative of theirs, he was slow, and he accidentally got caught in a fire, accidentally. And he enjoyed the treatment that he got in the hospital from all the nurses and the attention. Once he was healed and back, you know what he did? He purposely caught himself on fire. Yeah, he did that on purpose. Ran out in the yard. It was in the winter. They did get him out. He ended up over here at Metro. And I went to see him. He died there. He was completely in bandages, but the thought was he enjoyed the attentions. He wanted to be loved, but he purposely caught himself on fire, and it was just awful. It was just awful, and it can be, and it needs to be. Fire should be fatal to our flesh. We need to burn up the old nature. We fatal to the flesh. All right, uses up all the air around, and spirit is like the wind. All right, so what I would say then, to finish up, the finish here, and what did I say, our last one, the fruit of this, is like in Acts chapter 2. What was the fire there likened unto above their heads? Like cloven tongues on the head, right? When they spoke in tongues and there was a fire there. Folks, if we're going to have the Holy Spirit, He is likened unto a fire, but it's a controlled fire. That's the kind of fire we want, not the fire of the fury of God. Amen. Shake hands before you.